And, you know, Gilbert Arenas, guys coming out of college, UCLA, Arizona, Gil came off the bench.
Right.
You know, Darren Collison was a starting point guard at UCLA before Russ was even got an opportunity.
LeBron James just gave Gilbert Arenas his flowers. And if you know Gil's game, you know it's long overdue. In this episode of Mind the Game, LeBron breaks down why Gilbert was one of those rare dudes you couldn't deny. Not a system player, not a role filler. A dominant player who gets buckets at will and who forced teams to adjust. Make sure you watch until the end, where LeBron also says something interesting about Russell Westbrook as well.
You look around the league, look at some of these guys like Jalen Brunson, Shai. These guys are supposed to be point guards, but they're actually more like two guards in a sense. So it's funny how it's kind of, it's
Going
all
back.
well, it's like they can of course make plays, but they're so talented at scoring, their footwork, they're finding the body, getting the line, whatever it may be. It's just interesting how the shape of your initiator, like his profile can be anything from Jalen Brunson to Nikola Jokić nowadays, right? And that's what fascinates me about the game.
That's the beauty of the game right there, because you never know. You never know until that player starts to shape himself out to what type of, I mean, as a coach, I mean, obviously, you know, you've been there and done that, but if you get a young Nikola Jokić or a young, Jalen Brunson, and when you get them, it takes time to see how they shape out, to now be able to say, oh, this is how we're going to play. And this is what we need to build around these guys, you know? And the New York Knicks have built around Jalen Brunson on what his style is, you know, gritty guys, tough guys, long wing guys, and it's allowed him to be special on what he does. And like you said, being able to score the ball, get to the free throw line. He's a three-level scorer, being able to get to the paint, use his footwork, things of that nature. We always talk about guys who went to Villanova. That's one thing they're going to have, and that's great footwork. You're never going to be off balance, and the same thing, well, like you're saying, like, Shai, you're able to build. How do you build that, and then you build around it? That's a great organization. That's a great coaching staff.
Something to be said about that, like simplifying the way we play. We play through this person. We support them with these type of players. You're seeing obviously different shapes of the playmaker, but really what everyone wants to build around is spacing, right? And guys that can guard multiple positions. It's interesting. I still feel like I don't know how Jalen does it, man. He's got so much responsibility, and they can't get Drew off him a lot late in games. They send up a screen, Drew fights through. So he spends 12, 15 seconds of the shot clock trying to get Drew off him, does it, and then he's got to go at him again, right? And it's like, man, I don't know how he's able to sustain that level of performance at his size with the best guy guarding him every night, trying to make those
multiple
plays.
guys, because Boston has multiple guys.
Multiple, right?
You have, you got, Drew Holiday, who's dogging you all the way up the court, and then you're trying to run a pick and roll. Now, Jaylen Brown switches off onto you, and then you're trying to get another switch, and Derek White's on you. Now, at the end of the shot clock, sometimes you have Al Horford closing out on you, and you can win the foot race, but the guy's still 6'10", 6'11", and he's smart as hell. So, like,
and you got all long wings around him that are taking up space.
And that makes it even more dynamic of why, how it just shows how great he is.
It's also great stories, right? Like him, Shai, Nikola Jokić. Like when they came in the league, no one was thinking superstars, right?
Well, no, I mean, Shai wouldn't be in OKC.
Right. If they knew this is what he was.
Jalen Brunson would still be in Dallas. It's like, those are great stories where guys is like, they believed in themselves. Denver saw something in Nikola.
For sure.
Because at the same time, I believe Nurkic was there too.
He was the first round pick.
First round pick, yeah.
Nikola was the second round pick.
They saw something in him, and obviously they were fucking right.
I mean, he forced their hand, right, with his development skill. He's such a unique player, right? But I felt like it's interesting how the way the game's changed. Like even let's go back to like Russell Westbrook and Gilbert Arenas. Though in college, they weren't point guards, they weren't playmakers, they weren't making decisions. They were just great athletes. They were trying to find themselves. They developed into guys that could make the decision every time, right? And I think those are guys that maybe we don't talk about as much, but like they matriculated into that decision maker, right? And so we're seeing that now. It's almost like that never happened in the old days, right? Like it was like, this is what you are, you play this position, you slot into these 5 spots. Now it's like, if a guy continues to develop, he can break the first line of defense, he's taking up real estate, creating opportunities. Can he now solve by scoring and passing in those situations? We're seeing so many guys become that throughout their career.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, this is kind of off topic a little bit, but it's definitely on topic of what we're talking about. Like, I remember watching, NBA games when I was like teenager or maybe even younger, and it was almost like seeing Sam Perkins shoot a three.
Right, it was wild.
Was wild.
Right.
Seeing Manute Bol shoot a three was like,
what's happening?
Why is he 6'11", 7'6", shooting threes? It's like people was looking at the screen like, oh my God, like what is this? And just to go back to what you're saying, seeing guys like Russell Westbrook and Gilbert Arenas, guys coming out of college, UCLA, Arizona. Gil came off the bench.
Right.
Darren Collison was a starting point guard at UCLA before Russ was even got an opportunity. But when you talk about things that cannot be denied, you could, when they were on the court or you saw them, it was something that had, when we talk about the it factor.
Yeah.
Gil had the it factor.
Belief.
He had the belief in himself. He had the it factor. Every time he touched the court, you was like, oh shit, this guy's special.
Yeah.
This guy's special. Every time Russ stepped on the court, oh, this guy's special. We've never seen anything like this. Like it's like as soon as you get on the court, it's a missile.
Right.
And that's the beauty of the game sometimes, where you able to, like, those, I don't want to say diamond in the roughs, but I mean, you look at Gil, I think he was a second round pick.
Right.
To Golden State.
Well, you said it, like nowadays everyone's one and done.
Right.
He came off the bench.
Right.
In college, right? So like it's just interesting how, and don't get me wrong, there was heliocentric players, in different eras. Tiny Archibald.
Yeah, for sure.
Oscar Robertson. I think then you get to Magic and Bird in different ways, but they weren't like, it's just different how it's evolved. So it's like it's just interesting how many guys now. And is it because we know more? Is it player development? Is it so much based on personality? But so many more guys are becoming these positionless players.
Do you think, I always think about, because there wasn't no social media back in, obviously, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, that we could have missed out on a lot of talent, in towns that word of mouth wasn't big enough, or player wasn't heard about, or nobody could, get the word out, and we missed out on a Russell Westbrook, that.
There's no question.
There's
no question.
I always think about that type of stuff.
That's not just social media, but YouTube. But technology has allowed the world to get so small, so much information. Think about it, like Bronny growing up could kind of see whatever he wanted to see on his phone.
Right.
I could see how we work out. Obviously, he had access to, but he could see what everyone does, hear from everyone's opinion on this person. Back in those days, you kind of learned through your high school coach, your summer coach, your AAU coach, and stories.
Yeah. And if a kid happened to get invited to a summer camp or something.
You see something?
Yeah.
When LeBron gives props like that, you know it's real. Gilbert Arenas might be a controversial individual, but the talent, undeniable. He even gave the great Kobe Bryant buckets on the basketball court. Well, what do you think? Was Gil ahead of his time or just in the wrong era? Feel free to comment below. That's all I have for this one. I'll see you in the next video.